They slaughtered every last man, woman, and child on Earth. Now the Krenim Imperium hungers to finish the job. Commander Dixon stood before the assembled colonists of New Eden, his weathered face etched with sorrow as he spoke of the horrors inflicted upon their homeworld a decade prior. The ruthless aliens had bombarded the planet without mercy, reducing once thriving cities to rubble and leaving behind a lifeless husk where billions once called home. As Dixon recounted the grim details of that fateful day, a hush fell over the crowd. Some wept openly, while others clenched their fists in silent rage. The pain of loss still felt as fresh as the day the news reached their remote outpost. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the gathering. An unmarked shuttle had breached the colony's perimeter, broadcasting a universal distress signal. Dixon and Tanner, his hulking ex-Marine security chief, approached the craft with weapons drawn, bracing for any threat that might emerge. The shuttle's hatch hissed open, revealing a single occupant slumped against the controls. Dr. Boran Thaxon, a brilliant Krenim scientist and lone voice of opposition against his species' genocidal campaign, lay hemorrhaging in the tattered remains of his uniform. Dixon recognized him instantly. As colony medics rushed to stabilize Boran, the dying Krenim pressed a data disk into Dixon's hands. "They're coming?" he rasped, his voice barely audible. "The Emperor has decreed the eradication of every remaining human settlement. You must unite them, Commander. Fight back, or all will be lost." With that, Boran slipped into unconsciousness, his dire warning hanging in the air like a death knell. Dixon wasted no time. Plugging the disk into New Eden's central computer, he pored over the decrypted files, his brow furrowed in concentration. Star charts flashed across the screen, pinpointing the locations of a dozen other surviving human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Heavily encrypted Krenim documents hinted at the specifics of their impending assault. Grimly determined to unravel the mystery and mount a last stand against humanity's would-be destroyers, Dixon dispatched scout ships to re-establish contact with their long-lost brethren. The race was on to unite the fractured remnants of humankind before the Krenim fleet could unleash its final, devastating blow. Failure was not an option. The very future of their species hung in the balance. As the first rays of dawn crept over New Eden's rugged horizon, Commander Dixon strode purposefully through the colony's bustling streets. The previous night's revelations burdened immensely on his mind as he made his way to the spaceport, where a small, nondescript freighter awaited him. Dixon had handpicked a team of specialists for the infiltration mission, each chosen for their unique skills and unwavering loyalty. Grayson Wolfe, the gruff prospector who had uncovered the ancient alien artifact, leaned against the freighter's hull, his weathered face set in a determined scowl. Beside him stood Dr. Elias Volkov, the brilliant scientist who had received the coded transmission from his long-lost daughter. Volkov clutched a battered data pad, his eyes scanning the complex schematics of the Krenim research facility. Dixon nodded to the two men as he approached, his voice low and urgent. "Wolf, Volkov, you're certain about the coordinates?" Wolf tapped the holster of his plasma pistol. "Damn sure, Commander. That artifact lit up like a supernova when I found it. The coordinates are burned into my brain." Volkov looked up from his datapad, his eyes gleaming with a mix of persistence and apprehension. "And my daughter's transmission confirms it. She's risking everything to get us this information." Dixon placed a hand on Volkov's shoulder, his voice softening. "We'll get her out of there, Doctor. You have my word." As the three men boarded the freighter, they were joined by the rest of the infiltration team. Tanner, Dixon's hulking ex-Marine security chief, Mira Shade, a lithe, dark-haired woman with a reputation as the best hacker in the colonies, and Zane Riker, a cocky young pilot with a knack for getting in and out of tight spots. The freighter lifted off, its engines whining as it pierced the atmosphere and slipped into the inky void of space. In the cramped confines of the ship, the team pored over the limited intelligence they had gathered, discussing strategies and contingencies. Dixon stood before them, his voice commanding attention. "Listen up. We're headed into the heart of enemy territory. The Krenim may have superior firepower and numbers, but we have something they don't, the element of surprise. We hit them hard, fast, and where they least expect it." Shade looked up from her console, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. I've been analyzing the facility's security systems. They're advanced but not impenetrable. Give me enough time, and I can get us in undetected. Riker chimed in, a cocky grin on his face. And once we're inside, I'll make sure we have a quick getaway. The Denobulin Nebula is a navigational nightmare, but I've flown through worse. As the freighter hurtled through the stars, drawing ever closer to the secret Krenim installation, Dixon felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. The fate of humanity rested on the success of their mission. Failure was not an option. In the heart of the Denobulin Nebula, the clandestine Krenim research facility loomed, its sinister black spires jutting from the roiling clouds of gas and dust. Deep within its labyrinthine corridors, Dr. Mira Volkov worked feverishly at her console, her heart pounding as she encrypted a final transmission to her father. She knew her treachery would soon be discovered, but she had to risk everything to give humanity a fighting chance. As she hit the send button, alarms blared throughout the facility. Krenim soldiers, their faces hidden behind sleek, insectoid helmets, flooded the corridors, their phase-shift rifles at the ready. Mira sprinted for the nearest escape pod, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she dodged energy blasts that sizzled past her head. She had just reached the pod when a searing pain tore through her shoulder. A Krenim soldier loomed over her, his rifle aimed squarely at her heart. Mira closed her eyes, bracing for the killing blow, but it never came. Instead, the soldier crumpled to the ground, a smoking hole in his chest. Behind him stood Zane Riker, his plasma pistol still glowing from the shot. "Dr. Volkov, I presume," he quipped, flashing her a roguish grin. Mira stared at him in disbelief as the rest of the infiltration team emerged from the shadows, their weapons blazing as they cut down the Krenim soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Commander Dixon knelt beside her, his voice urgent. "Doctor, we need you to guide us to the facility's central database. We're here to steal the Krenim's technological secrets and put an end to their plans for annihilation." Mira nodded, gritting her teeth against the pain in her shoulder. "Follow me," she said, her voice steely with tenacity. "But be warned, what you're about to see will change the course of this war forever." Mira led the team through the winding corridors of the Krenim facility, her injured shoulder throbbing with each step. Dixon and his squad moved with practiced efficiency, covering each other as they advanced deeper into enemy territory. "The central database is 2 levels down," Mira whispered, gesturing towards a heavily fortified elevator shaft. "But security is tighter than ever. We'll need a distraction." Zane Riker stepped forward, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Leave that to me, Doc. I've got just the thing." As Riker slipped away to set his plan in motion, Dixon turned to address the rest of the team. "Wolf, you and Tanner secure our exit route. Shade, I need you to hack into their systems and disable any alarms. Dr. Volkov, you're with me. We'll retrieve the data." The group dispersed, each member focused on their assigned tasks. Dixon and Elias Volkov made their way towards the central database, guided by Mira's detailed instructions. As they approached the heavily guarded entrance, a series of explosions rocked the facility. Alarms blared as Krenim soldiers rushed to investigate the disturbance. Taking advantage of the chaos, Dixon and Volkov slipped into the now unguarded database room. "Incredible," Volkov breathed, his eyes wide as he took in the array of advanced technology before them. "Their quantum computing capabilities are light years beyond our own." Dixon nodded grimly. "And they've been using it to plan our extinction. Let's get what we came for and get out of here." As Volkov began downloading the Krenim secrets, Dixon's comm unit crackled to life. Mira's voice came through, urgent and breathless. "Commander, we've got a problem. Chief of Security Zorak is headed your way with a full squad. You need to move now." Dixon cursed under his breath. "How much longer, Doctor?" Volkov's fingers flew over the alien interface. "Just a few more seconds. There. Download complete." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Dixon grabbed the data crystal and pulled Volkov towards a secondary exit. "Time to go." They emerged into a maintenance tunnel just as Zorak and his men burst into the database room. Dixon's comm unit buzzed again, this time with Zane Riker's voice. "Commander, we've secured a Krenim shuttle. Rendezvous at Docking Bay, 3 in 2 minutes." As Dixon and Volkov raced through the facility's bowels, the rest of the team converged on their extraction point. Tanner laid down suppressing fire, his heavy weapon keeping the Crenum forces at bay, while Wolf used his knowledge of treacherous environments to guide them through the chaos. They reached the docking bay to find Riker at the controls of a sleek Crenum vessel, its engines already humming with power. "All aboard!" he called out, flashing that cocky grin once more. The team piled in, Dixon and Mira providing covering fire as the last stragglers made it aboard. As the shuttle's doors sealed shut, Riker punched the throttle, sending them hurtling out into the swirling gases of the Denobulan Nebula. "They're launching fighters," Shade reported from her position at the sensor array. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they're on us." Riker's hands danced over the unfamiliar controls. "Strap in, folks. This is going to get bumpy." The stolen shuttle dove and weaved through the nebula's treacherous currents, with Riker pushing the ship to its limits. Behind them, Crenum fighters gave chase, their energy weapons lighting up the cosmic dust around them. Dixon turned to Mira, who was tending to her wounded shoulder. "Your father's transmission mentioned something that would change the course of the war. What did you discover in there?" Mira's eyes met his, a mix of hope and fear in her gaze. "The Crenum have developed a weapon capable of erasing entire civilizations from time itself, but their experiments have revealed a fatal flaw in the technology, one that could be the key to our survival." As the shuttle rocketed towards the edge of the nebula, Dixon realized that their daring heist was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, uniting the fractured human colonies and finding a way to use the stolen Crenum secrets before it was too late. The stolen Crenum shuttle burst from the swirling gases of the Denobulan Nebula, leaving a trail of pursuing fighters in its wake. Riker's expert piloting had bought them precious time, but the Crenum were closing fast. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they're on us," Shade reported, her eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. Dixon turned to Mira, his expression grave. "Your father's transmission mentioned something that would change the course of the war. What did you discover in there?" Mira met his gaze, her eyes a mixture of hope and fear. "The Crenum have developed a weapon capable of erasing entire civilizations from time itself, but their experiments have revealed a fatal flaw in the technology, one that could be the key to our survival." Before Dixon could press for more details, the shuttle rocked violently. A Crenum energy blast had grazed their starboard engine, sending them into a wild spin. "Riker!" Dixon shouted over the blaring alarms. "I've got it, Commander." Riker's hands flew over the controls, stabilizing the craft. "But we can't take many more hits like that." As if in response to Riker's words, the pursuing Crenum vessels opened fire again. This time, their aim was true. The shuttle's port engine exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. "We're losing altitude," Riker called out, fighting the controls. "Brace for impact." The shuttle plummeted through the nebula's gaseous clouds, trailing fire and smoke. With a bone-jarring crash, it slammed into the surface of a small, rocky planetoid hidden within the nebula's depths. Dixon pulled himself up from the wreckage, his ears ringing. "Sound off! Is everyone all right?" Groans and affirmations echoed through the smoke-filled cabin. As the team staggered to their feet, Dixon realized with horror that Dr. Volkov was pinned beneath a fallen support beam. "Father!" Mira cried, rushing to his side. Together, Dixon and Tanner heaved the beam off the injured scientist. Dr. Volkov's face was ashen, his breathing labored. "We need to move," Wolf growled, peering out of the shattered viewport. "Those Crenum bastards will be on us any minute." Dixon nodded grimly. "Tanner, help me with the doctor. Riker, Shade, grab whatever equipment you can salvage. Wolf, you're on point." As they stumbled from the wreckage, the whine of Crenum shuttles filled the air. The team scrambled for cover among the jagged rocks, watching as their pursuers touched down nearby. Commander Zorak emerged from the lead shuttle, his insectoid helmet gleaming in the nebula's eerie light. He barked orders to his troops, who fanned out in search patterns. "This way," Wolf whispered, gesturing towards a narrow crevice in the planetoid's surface. "I can smell stale air. There might be caves we can use to lose them." The team crawled through the tight opening, emerging into a vast network of underground tunnels. As they pressed deeper into the darkness, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. Dr. Volkov's condition worsened, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "We need to stop," Mira pleaded, her father's arm draped over her shoulder. "He can't go on like this." Dixon knew she was right, but the decision greatly troubled on him. Every moment they delayed increased the risk of capture. "All right," he conceded. "We'll rest here for now. Shade, see what you can do with that Krenim data we stole. Riker, Wolf, scout ahead. I want to know our options." As the team settled in, Dixon crouched beside Dr. Volkov. The scientist's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Dixon with effort. "Commander," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "the weapon, it's more dangerous than we realized. The Krenim, they're playing with forces beyond their control." Dixon leaned closer, straining to hear. "What do you mean, Doctor?" But before Volkov could answer, a distant explosion rocked the cavern. Dust and small rocks rained down from above. "They've found us!" Tanner shouted, raising his weapon. The sound of approaching Krenim troops echoed through the tunnels. Dixon's mind raced, weighing their limited options. They were cornered, outnumbered, and carrying vital intelligence that could turn the tide of the war. As the first energy blast lit up the darkness, Dixon made his decision. They would stand and fight, here in the depths of an alien world, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Balance. Dixon gritted his teeth, his mind racing through their limited options. The approaching Krenim troops left no room for retreat. "Shade, secure that data. Tanner, Wolf, create a choke point. We'll funnel them through and pick them off." Dixon's orders cut through the chaos as his team sprang into action. Mira crouched over her father, her eyes wide with desperation. "Commander, we can't move him. He's too weak." Dixon knelt beside them, his voice low and urgent. "Doctor, that weapon you mentioned, we need to know everything." Volkov's breath rattled in his chest as he spoke. "The Krenim, they've harnessed temporal energy, but it's unstable, unpredictable. They don't fully understand what they've created." A volley of energy blasts lit up the tunnel entrance. Tanner returned fire, his heavy weapon sending chunks of rock raining down on the advancing Krenim. "We need more time," Dixon muttered, his fingers tightening around his weapon. As if in answer to his unspoken prayer, a distant explosion rocked the cavern. The Krenim troops hesitated, their attention divided. Riker's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, you're not going to believe this. We've got friendlies incoming. Looks like a human strike team." Relief washed over Dixon, quickly replaced by suspicion. How had reinforcements found them so quickly? The firefight intensified as the new arrivals engaged the Krenim from behind. Caught in a deadly crossfire, the alien soldiers began to fall back. A figure in phase-shift armor materialized at the tunnel entrance, helmet retracting to reveal a familiar face. "Sergeant Stone, sir. Looks like we got here just in time." Dixon nodded, questions burning in his mind, but knowing now wasn't the moment. "Sit rep, Sergeant. We've seized control of a Krenim shipyard in orbit. Infiltration was a success, but we took heavy losses. Command sent us to extract you and the package." As Stone's team secured the area, Dixon turned back to Dr. Volkov. The scientist's eyes had closed, his breathing shallow. "We need to move now, sir," Stone urged. "Our window won't stay open long." With iron will, Dixon helped Mira lift her father. The ragtag group made their way through the tunnels, emerging onto the planetoid's surface where a stealth shuttle waited. As they lifted off, Dixon watched the Krenim facility shrink beneath them. He knew the real battle was just beginning. The data they'd stolen, the weapon Volkov had described, it would change everything. The shuttle docked with a human warship hidden in the nebula's swirling depths. As medical teams rushed to tend to the wounded, Dixon found himself face-to-face with Admiral Singh. "Welcome back, Commander," Singh said, her expression grave. "I hope what you've brought us was worth the cost." Dixon handed over the data crystal, his voice steady. "It's more than we ever imagined, Admiral, and it may be our only chance of survival." Over the following months, the human colonies poured their resources into Project Prometheus. On New Eden, Dr. Thaxton and the surviving members of Dixon's team worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of Krenim technology. Dixon watched as phase-shift weaponry was integrated into their ships and defense systems. The breakthrough filled him with hope, but also dread. He couldn't shake the memory of Volkov's warning about forces beyond their control. As tensions rose between the colonies over strategy, Dixon found himself caught in the middle. He stood before the gathered leaders, his voice cutting through the heated debate. "We have one shot at this," he declared. "We can't afford to be divided. Not now." The uneasy compromise they reached left no one fully satisfied. But as reports of Krenim agents across human space began to trickle in, Dixon knew they were out of time. He gave the order to launch their desperate offensive against Krenim's staging bases. As the first waves of stealth ships departed, carrying Earth's best and bravest, Dixon could only hope it would be enough. The colonies held their breath, waiting for news of the attacks. When it came, victory was tempered by the staggering cost. Dixon read through the list of casualties, each name a weight on his conscience. In the shipyard control room, now filled with reverse-engineered Krenim tech, Dixon stared at the long-range sensors. The Imperial fleet was coming, their numbers vast and terrible. He turned to his team, commitment etched on their faces. They had bought themselves a chance, paid for in blood. Now they would make it count. As klaxons began to sound throughout the station, Dixon squared his shoulders. The true test of humanity's grit lay ahead, and he would meet it head-on. The Krenim attack came without warning. Alarms blared throughout New Eden as the first Imperial destroyers breached the atmosphere, their weapons already blazing. Dixon sprinted to the command center, his heart pounding. "Status report," he barked, scanning the holographic display. Lieutenant Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm. "Multiple Krenim vessels inbound, sir. Our defenses are barely holding." Dixon gritted his teeth. They'd been caught flat-footed, distracted by Vega's betrayal and the colony's infighting. Now they were paying the price. "Launch all fighters," he ordered. "Activate the phase shift generators. We need to buy time for the civilian evacuation." Outside, the sky lit up with energy beams and explosions. Vasquez led her fighter wings in a desperate counterattack, weaving through the Imperial formation. Her voice was strained as she reported, "We're sustaining heavy losses, Commander. Their firepower is overwhelming." Dixon watched helplessly as friendly indicators winked out on the tactical display. The experimental, human-adapted phase shift technology was barely slowing the Krenim advance. Reports flooded in from across human space. Paradiso was in chaos. Governor Vega's forces locked in bitter conflict with Krenim loyalists. On Zephyr, Sergeant Stone single-handedly fought off Krenim assassins, giving President Rourke precious minutes to escape. Only Atlantica seemed to be holding its own, Admiral Singh's aquatic defenses proving a match for the initial Krenim assault. A glimmer of hope appeared as the first wave of upgraded human ships entered the fray. Temporal displacement fields wreaked havoc on the Krenim vessels, causing massive system failures. "Press the attack," Dixon ordered, seizing the moment. "We might just turn this—" His words died in his throat as a blinding flash erupted on the main view screen. Where Zephyr had been, a gaping void now yawned. "What the hell was that?" someone whispered. Dr. Thaxton's face appeared on a secondary display, ashen with horror. "Commander, they've deployed a chrono disruptor. It's erased Zephyr from existence, as if it never was." The implications hit Dixon like a physical blow. The Krenim now wielded a weapon that could unmake reality itself. As reports of increasing devastation poured in, Dixon made his decision. They would sacrifice New Eden to ensure humanity's survival. "All ships, this is Commander Dixon," he broadcast. "We're making our stand here. Civilian transports, begin immediate evacuation. All combat-capable vessels, form up on me." He turned to his bridge crew, drive etched on their faces. "Today, we fight not just for our lives, but for our very existence. Let's show these bastards what humanity is made of." The New Eden Defense Force charged forward, drawing the Imperial warships into range of the colony's grounded heavy weapons. As the chrono disruptor tore apart the fabric of reality around them, Dixon gave the order to fire. At point-blank range, experimental temporal weapons engulfed the Krenim fleet. The chrono disruptor destabilized, detonating with reality-shattering force. The resulting shockwave rippled across space and time, inflicting catastrophic damage on both sides. As the chaos subsided, Dixon stared at the devastation surrounding them. New Eden was in ruins, but the Krenim invasion force had been shattered. Stunned by the temporal cataclysm and humanity's fierce resistance, the surviving Krenim commanders signaled a retreat. Dixon slumped in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. They had survived, but at a terrible cost. As emergency teams scrambled to assess the damage, he knew the real challenge lay ahead. How could they hope to fight an enemy capable of erasing them from history itself? Dixon surveyed the ruins of New Eden, his throat tight with emotion. The chrono shockwave had left a surreal landscape, buildings half erased from existence, reality itself warped and distorted. He keyed his comm. All units, report in. I need a full damage assessment. As the grim reports trickled in, Dixon's mind raced. They had survived, but at a devastating cost. How could they hope to stand against an enemy capable of unmaking history itself? A priority transmission cut through his dark thoughts. Admiral Singh's hologram flickered to life, her expression grave but determined. Commander, I'm initiating Operation Kingslayer. We need your best people for a high-risk infiltration of Krenim space. Dixon listened intently as Singh outlined her audacious plan. When she finished, he nodded grimly. Understood, Admiral. I'll assemble the team immediately. Hours later, Dixon stood before the chosen operatives in a makeshift briefing room. Major Arjun Khanna, Captain Alec Mitchell, Aiko Tanaka, and Grayson Wolfe, the best humanity had to offer. You've all been briefed on the mission parameters, Dixon said, his voice low and urgent. This may be our only shot at destabilizing the Krenim Empire before they can mount another offensive. Any questions? Wolfe, the grizzled prospector turned commando, spoke up. How the hell are we supposed to infiltrate their capital? Even with our new tech, it's a suicide run. Dixon nodded to Dr. Thaxton, who stepped forward with a data crystal. This contains vital intel from our Krenim defectors, Thaxton explained. Combined with Ms. Tanaka's expertise, it should get you past their security grid undetected. As the team pored over the mission details, Dixon pulled Captain Mitchell aside. Alec, I need you to understand the stakes here. If you fail... Mitchell's eyes sharp. We won't fail, sir. The stealth frigate Corsair slipped silently through Krenim space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Imperial sensors. On the bridge, Captain Mitchell's fingers danced over the controls, making minute adjustments to their approach vector. Entering Krenerak Prime's atmosphere, he announced. Aiko, how's our electronic signature? Tanaka's eyes never left her displays. We're ghosts, Captain. Their systems can't see us. In the cargo bay, Major Khanna ran final checks on the team's phase shift armor. Wolfe hefted his heavy weapon, a grim smile on his weathered face. Time to crash an Imperial party. The Corsair touched down silently in the shadow of the sprawling Imperial palace. As the team disembarked, Mitchell's voice crackled in their comms. You've got a 30-minute window before orbital patrols realign. Make it count. Tanaka's fingers flew over her hollow interface, bypassing security protocols with inhuman speed. We're in. Follow me. They moved swiftly through opulent corridors, their cloaking tech rendering them invisible to the occasional Krenim guard. As they neared the throne room, the sound of weapons fire erupted ahead. Contact! Wolfe hissed, raising his rifle. They rounded a corner to find a scene of chaos. Krenim soldiers lay dead or dying, and at the center stood a towering figure in ornate armor. Overlord Skrull, the infamous Shadow Broker himself. Looks like we're not the only ones after the Emperor, Khanna muttered. Before they could react, Skrull turned, his alien eyes narrowing as he detected their presence despite the cloaking field. Humans, he snarled, raising a crackling energy weapon. Your pitiful species never knows when to accept its fate. The air filled with sizzling bolts of temporal energy as both sides opened fire. Wolfe roared in pain as a blast caught him in the shoulder, but he maintained suppressing fire as the team pushed forward. Kana rolled to the side, coming up with his phase pistol, trained on Skrull. 2 quick shots punched through the Overlord's defenses, dropping him to the floor. "Wolf's hit!" Tanaka called out, applying Medigel to the wounded commando. "Leave me," Wolf growled. "Finish the mission." Mitchell's voice cut through the chaos. "Multiple hostiles converging on your position. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Kana nodded to his team. "This is it. Let's end this war." They burst into the throne room, weapons at the ready. The Cranium Emperor stood defiant, surrounded by his elite guard. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as 2 species, locked in a battle for survival, faced each other at last. Then all hell broke loose. The throne room erupted into chaos as both sides opened fire. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, melting ornate decorations and leaving scorch marks on ancient stone walls. Major Kana dove behind a pillar, his phase pistol humming with power. "Tanaka, jam their comms," he barked. "Mitchell, flank left." Aiko's fingers flew across her hollow interface, flooding Cranium frequencies with static. Captain Mitchell activated his phase shift armor, becoming a ghostly blur as he circled around the Emperor's guard. The Cranium leader stood defiant, protected by a shimmering energy field. "You cannot stop the inevitable," he snarled. "Time itself bends to our will." Wolf, despite his injury, unleashed a barrage from his heavy weapon. The Emperor's shield flickered, but held. Kana saw their window closing. "Now!" he shouted. Mitchell rematerialized behind the Emperor, driving a temporal disruptor into the shield's weak point. The barrier shattered, leaving the Cranium leader exposed. Kana didn't hesitate. 3 precise shots, and humanity's greatest enemy crumpled to the floor. Alarms blared as the team fought their way back to the Corsair. They lifted off just as Cranium reinforcements swarmed the landing zone, Mitchell's piloting skills narrowly evading the barrage of fire. As they broke atmosphere, Admiral Singh's hologram flickered to life in the cockpit. "Report, Major." Kana allowed himself a grim smile. "Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Emperor is dead." Singh nodded, her expression a mix of relief and perseverance. "Well done, but our work is just getting started. Return to base immediately. We need to capitalize on this victory before the Empire can regroup." 6 months later, Dixon stood at the viewport of New Eden's orbital command station, watching as construction drones swarmed over the partially rebuilt colony. The scars of the Cranium attack were still visible, but signs of recovery were everywhere. A chime at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Admiral Singh strode in, her crisp uniform adorned with the newly minted insignia of the Terran Federation. "Commander," she greeted him, "the Council is assembled. It's time." Dixon nodded, following her to the conference room. The faces around the table were a mix of familiar and new. President Rourke, looking haggard but determined, Governor Vega, his eyes darting nervously, and Major Kana, now sporting the rank of Supreme Commander. "Let's begin," Singh announced. "The final draft of the Terran Articles of Federation is before you. We need a decision today." Rourke leaned forward. "I still have concerns about the military's role in this new government. We can't simply trade one authoritarian regime for another." "With all due respect, Madam President," Kana interjected, "a unified defense force is essential to our survival. The Cranium may be defeated, but they're not the only threat out there." The debate raged on, voices rising as old grudges and fresh wounds collided. Dixon observed silently, noting the shifting alliances and unspoken tensions. Suddenly the room fell quiet as Captain Mitchell burst in, his face grim. "Apologies for the interruption, but you all need to see this." He activated the holo display, revealing footage of a massive crowd gathered on Paradiso's central plaza. At its center stood Aiko Tanaka, her voice ringing out clear and passionate. "We cannot move forward without accountability," she declared. "The Cranium collaborators among us must face justice. We demand tribunals." The crowd roared its approval. Dixon saw the color drain from Vega's face. "This changes everything," Singh murmured. As the implications sank in, Dixon realized the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity had survived the Cranium onslaught, But now they faced a test perhaps even more difficult, forging a lasting peace among themselves. The Terran Federation's early years unfolded in a flurry of activity. President Singh and Supreme Commander Khanna wasted no time integrating the disparate colonial forces into a unified Terran defense force. Massive shipyards hummed with activity, churning out sleek warships that incorporated reverse-engineered cranium technology. On New Eden's orbital station, Dixon watched as the latest vessel, the TDF Valiant, glided out of its construction bay. Its hull gleamed with a strange, shimmering quality, a result of the phase-shift alloys that now form the backbone of Terran naval engineering. "Impressive, isn't she?" Admiral Singh's voice startled Dixon from his reverie. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am, but I can't help wondering if we're moving too fast. Some of the colonies are struggling to keep up with the resource demands." Singh's expression hardened. "We don't have the luxury of time, Commander. The Krenim may be defeated, but there are other threats out there. We must be ready." As if to underscore her point, a priority alert flashed across the holo display. Singh's eyes narrowed as she read the message. "Damn it," she muttered. "It's happening again." The crisis in the Grax Nebula unfolded with terrifying speed. Caden Drake, a name whispered in fear across the frontier worlds, had seized control of vital mining colonies. His threat to unleash salvaged Krenim temporal weapons sent shockwaves through the fledgling Federation. In the war room aboard the TDF Odysseus, Captain Alec Mitchell pored over tactical displays. The nebula's swirling gases obscured conventional sensors, making Drake's mercenaries all but invisible. "Any word from the negotiators?" Mitchell asked, his voice tight with tension. His XO shook her head. "Negative, sir." Last transmission indicated Drake was growing impatient. A flash of light on the main view screen drew their attention. Mitchell's blood ran cold as he realized what he was seeing. An entire colony, frozen in a state of temporal flux. "My God," he whispered. "He actually did it." President Singh's face appeared on the comm channel, her expression grim. "Captain Mitchell, you are authorized to engage Drake's forces with extreme prejudice. Stop him by any means necessary." The battle for the Grax Nebula stretched on for weeks. Mitchell's fleet darted in and out of the gaseous clouds, trading fire with Drake's elusive ships. Temporal disruptions wreathed the battlefield, twisting space and time into nightmarish configurations. Aboard the Odysseus, Mitchell gripped his command chair as another volley rocked the ship. "Status report," he barked. "Shields at 40%, sir," his tactical officer responded. "But we've located Drake's base. It's a cloaked asteroid at coordinates 227 Mark 115. Mitchell's eyes gleamed. "Sergeant Stone, prepare your team for immediate deployment. We're ending this today." The Marines' dropship screamed through the nebula's turbulent atmosphere, Stone's grip tightening on his phase rifle. The asteroid loomed ahead, its surface shimmering as the cloaking field fluctuated under the Odysseus's barrage. 30 seconds to touchdown," the pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "Good hunting, Marines." Stone nodded to his team. "Remember, our priority is disabling that temporal weapon. Everything else is secondary." The dropship touched down amid a hail of weapons fire. Stone's Marines burst out, their phase shift armor allowing them to duck and weave through solid matter. They pushed deeper into the base, engaging Drake's mercenaries in furious close-quarters combat. Stone fought his way to the command center, his enhanced senses picking up the telltale hum of Krenim technology. He burst through the final door to find Drake himself, hunched over a pulsating temporal core. "It's over, Drake!" Stone shouted, leveling his weapon. The mercenary leader turned, a mad gleam in his eyes. "You're too late," he snarled. "One push of this button, and your precious Federation unravels." Stone didn't hesitate. He launched himself forward, phase-shifting through the console to tackle Drake. They grappled fiercely, rolling across the floor as alarms blared around them. With a final desperate surge, Stone pinned Drake and delivered a crushing blow to his temple. As the mercenary leader slumped unconscious, Stone scrambled to disable the temporal weapon. His fingers flew over the alien controls, guided by countless hours of training with captured Krenim tech. "Sergeant," Mitchell's voice rang out over the comms, Status report. Stone allowed himself a small smile as the weapons core went dark. Threat neutralized, sir. Drake is in custody. The victory was short-lived. As Mitchell's team combed through Drake's base, they uncovered disturbing evidence of high-level Federation complicity. Encrypted communications, financial records, even weapons schematics, all pointed to a conspiracy reaching the highest echelons of power. This goes beyond Drake, Mitchell murmured, his face pale as he reviewed the data. Someone in the Federation was backing him. But who? And why? The answers would shake the very foundations of the Terran Federation. As accusations of treason flew between military and civilian leadership, the fragile peace humanity had fought so hard to achieve began to crumble. In a hidden safe house on New Eden, Aiko Tanaka's fingers flew across her hollow interface, sifting through terabytes of classified data. Her eyes widened as she uncovered the final piece of the puzzle. "Oh no," she whispered. "It can't be." A proximity alarm blared, signaling the approach of unknown operatives. Tanaka quickly encrypted her findings and activated her emergency beacon. As she slipped out the back exit, she knew the fate of the Federation now rested in her hands. The storm clouds of civil war gathered on the horizon, threatening to tear apart everything humanity had built in the wake of the Krenim invasion. The true test of the Terran Federation was about to begin. The encrypted message from Aiko Tanaka flashed across Captain Mitchell's secure terminal, its contents sending a chill down his spine. He read it twice, scarcely believing the words before him. "Exo, seal the bridge," Mitchell ordered, his voice low and tense. "Initiate Protocol Omega." As blast doors slammed shut and additional security measures engaged, Mitchell turned to his crew. "We have a situation. Tanaka's uncovered evidence of high-level treason. President Rourke is working with Krenim extremists." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Chen, Mitchell's XO, stepped forward. "Sir, that's impossible. The implications are worse than you can imagine," Mitchell cut him off. "Rourke has functional chrono-disruptors, the same weapons that nearly wiped us out." The color drained from Chen's face. "My God, what are our orders?" "We rendezvous with Tanaka, quietly." Mitchell's fingers flew across his console, plotting a course. "Set heading 227 Mark 115, maximum stealth. We can't risk—" A violent shudder rocked the Odysseus, claxons blaring as emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson. "Report!" Mitchell barked. "Massive power surge in the engine core." The chief engineer's panicked voice crackled over the comm. "Containment fields failing." Mitchell's mind raced. This was no coincidence. "Sabotage," he growled. "Rourke's people are on board." The ship lurched again, systems flickering. In the chaos, Mitchell caught a flash of movement. Ensign Reza lunging for the weapons console, a manic gleam in his eye. "Wolf!" Mitchell shouted. The grizzled Marine reacted with lightning speed, tackling Reza before he could reach the controls. They grappled fiercely, Reza's augmented strength nearly a match for Wolf's battle-hardened reflexes. A high-pitched whine filled the air as the drive core threatened to breach. Mitchell's hands flew across his terminal, fighting to stabilize the ship. "Tanaka, if you can hear this, we need you." As if in answer, the ship's systems suddenly stabilized. Screens flickered to life, displaying lines of rapidly scrolling code. Tanaka's cyber warfare protocols, slicing through the saboteur's programming effortlessly. With a final, brutal blow, Wolf subdued Reza. The bridge fell silent save for the hum of restored systems and Wolf's ragged breathing. "Sit rep," Mitchell demanded. "Drive core stabilized, sir," Chen reported. "Damage control teams responding. We nearly lost her." Mitchell nodded grimly. "Secure all prisoners and sweep the ship. I want every inch checked for more surprises." Hours later, as the Odysseus limped to the rendezvous coordinates, Mitchell stood in his ready room. The hollow display flickered to life, revealing Tanaka's haggard face. "It's worse than we thought, Alec," she said without preamble. "Rourke isn't just working with the Krenim. He's made a deal with them, a deal that could unmake everything." Mitchell listened in growing horror as Tanaka laid out Rourke's insane plan. The chrono disruptors, the reactivated time travel tech, the bargain to erase Earth itself from history. "We have to warn Kana," Mitchell said, his heart pounding. This is extinction level." Tanaka nodded grimly. "I'm transmitting everything I have, but we need to move fast. Rourke's already—" The transmission cut off abruptly as proximity alarms blared. Mitchell raced to the bridge, barking orders. "Battle stations! What have we got?" "Multiple contacts, sir," Chen reported. "Paradiso cruisers, closing fast. They're charging weapons." Mitchell's teeth clenched. "So it begins. All hands, prepare for combat. May whatever gods are left have mercy on us all." The Odysseus banked hard, phaser banks charging as the first salvo from Rourke's fleet lit up the void. The battle to decide humanity's very existence had begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.